Hi, my friend. Long time no see. Today I prepared for you another unforgettable story. If you like it, put a like and send it to your friends. Enough talking, let's go watch. Since the beginning of time, humanity has been on the verge of extinction more than once. But each time the circumstances were such that people managed to survive. However, in our time, people faced pure evil, which destroyed all life. Well, let's see how this time people will cope with the apocalypse. Humanity has been battling monsters from other worlds and universes for years. But on one regular day in New York City's Manhattan, the beginning of the end has arrived. Those heroes who could still fight fought with all their might. But unfortunately, their strength was not enough to save the planet from destruction. On this terrible day for all mankind, something incredible happened. In the middle of Manhattan, a portal of unbelievable proportions formed. It had never been seen before that day. This portal was more like a crack in space from which the end-of-the-world monster emerged. His name was Hippo. His strength was so great that just by stepping on the ground he crushed the asphalt beneath his feet, and his claws were so huge and sharp that they could cut through skyscrapers like a hot knife through butter. The hero had never had such a huge size and incredible strength before. They didn't expect his strength to create a huge earthquake. There was genuine fear on their faces. They don't know what to do. This is probably the end of humanity. People knew that sooner or later the hippopotamus would come for them. He was known as the destroyer of worlds. The mere sight of him would drive the strongest and most experienced warriors of Earth into a stupor. They had to defeat the hippo before he destroyed the world. That mission proved impossible. This monster was angry. After being imprisoned for a long time, it was tormented by the thirst for destruction. Its roar was so loud and ferocious that it easily tore the trees around it. The heroes had no choice. It was either him or them. Gathering all their courage, they decided to fight the beast. Their chances were terribly slim, but they did. They knew if they didn't promote the hippo, then the world would be at an end. They must defeat it at any cost. They waited for the opportune moment to attack and went into battle. The strength and aura of the hippo was getting stronger by the second. The longer they waited, the less chance of victory. Battle Planet started back in 2010. At first it was just a competitive game between nations. The idea was to unite everyone, but all that changed with the opening of the Space League in 2022. Unfortunately, this mistake could permanently and irrevocably destroy the Earth. Ever since the Cosmic League opened, the battle for survival against other space creatures began. All humans united against a common enemy. Earth's representatives, the humans, were rapidly losing this war. Cities and entire countries were destroyed by monsters from outer space. Today is the year 2023. There are only 10 nations left on Earth who put the planet at risk of destruction. Even a mighty union like all the countries couldn't match the monsters. Their power was beyond human comprehension. Heroes fought respectable, sparing no effort and no life. Well, the hippo was too strong when he got tired of fiddling with this little thing. He decided to deliver the final blow. Concentrating all his energy in one place, he was ready to fire. A beam of dark matter burst out with incredible speed, destroying everything. The power of its attack was so high that it even warped space and time. The heroes could not withstand such a blow. Shit. What? Who's that flying guy? Are there really wars on the human side that have magical powers? After all, normal heroes don't have any unique abilities, not to mention levitation. This stranger was a ray of light impenetrable in the darkness. The people around him were terrified, but at the same time, they were overjoyed. Everyone around them began to whisper, he was able to kill a hippopotamus by himself? This is something incredible. This guy was standing on the body of a defeated monster and was just staring into the distance. Suddenly, an information window popped up in front of him that said, Earth, USA mission accomplished. His mission was to save the Earth? So who is he, anyway? Better, one of the heroes recognizes him. He used to be an ordinary fighting priest. How can the most ordinary and unremarkable priest have such inhuman strength? Something has clearly happened to Hai. It's time to get to know this guy better. His name is Sung Ji-han, and he's an American first member ranked 7th in the world rankings of all players. Just 7th place? Then how much power do the players at the top of the list have? Suddenly, on the roof of one of the many skyscrapers, someone shouted very loudly. Our beloved country, America, had once again won. This historic moment will remain in the memory of all citizens. This man who was on the rooftop turned out to be Baron Williams. He was the head of the American First Guild, a player ranked #1 in the world rankings. It's amazing, all the strongest players on the planet gathered in one place. But for what? Suddenly, a beautiful girl jumped down from the same roof. Behind her back were incredibly beautiful and delicate wings that were created by her aura. One of the guild members shouted to her, "Priestess, don't go down there now. It could be dangerous." However, the Baron didn't care much. He said let him go. But Mr. Ram Energy Hippo is still raging on the surface. It's okay. She can take care of herself. Assessing the situation of the tall Baron's eyes. This behemoth is indeed powerful. The energy emanating from its corpse is enough to knock out most of the players. What? That hippo, what? Even dead, it's a big threat. Then how could Jihan defeat it? While the hippo was alive, he was badly wanted on a completely different level. But nevertheless, Son Jihan could be near him. It required incredible strength and concentration. Just a second later, the priestess runs to him and says, "Jihan, are you okay?" You could tell by the look on her face that she was very worried about him. This priestess was named Sophia, and she was also a member of American First. She was ranked 3rd in the guild. Sophia noticed that Jihan's left hand had simply dissolved. However, Sophia wasn't called a priestess for nothing. One of her unique abilities was restoration. With her magic staff, she would restore his arm in no time. She warns Jihan that it's going to hurt a lot because of the hippo's evil energy. He will have to be patient for a while. One of the guild members started shouting like a madman. "Mr. Baron, look over there." He was pointing at Jihan and Sophia. Instead of the hippo's corpse, a huge golden box appeared. It was the reward for the boss. God, I wonder how much of a boss he got. Jihan and Sophia's conversation was suddenly interrupted by a shout from the roof. "Hey, you two back off." The voice clearly belonged to a baron. "I'll take care of the reward." The commander-in-chief, along with the rest of the guild members, began to descend from the roof towards our heroes. How unfair is it, all the dirty work for Jihan, and the reward is disposed of by a sheep. Such injustice caught even the weakest players. They were the first to fight the hippo, and this is how they're going to be thanked? One of them says it's like he beat him. What are we supposed to do? His battle buddy answers him. The end of mankind is near, and it is a real danger. So such people are our only hope. Something tells me this Baron is a real bastard. I mean, his guild members do all the dirty work and he just takes the money. I know from experience, it's not going to end well. Upon opening the reward chest, the ram started yelling like a lunatic. "American First, attention. I will now announce the names of those who will receive the reward." Who gave him the right to dispose of the Jihan reward like that? The rest of the guard were just lapdogs. Did they follow their commander's every order? Just a bunch of losers. So, Baron gives us the names of the people taking the money. Priestess, #4, and #5. That's it. Sophia screams, "What?" "Wait." Sophia came closer and closer to the Baron and told him. The monster was destroyed by Jihan. Wow. Sophia will be braver than many men. The other members of the guard were a little embarrassed by the priestess's behavior. Why don't you give him an award? Why don't you give him a reward? He practically coped with the hippopotamus alone. Why don't you give him anything? The ram angrily points at the Jihan and says, "Why? Because he's not American." Wow, that's not cool at all. Everyone should get what they've earned. It's got to be fair. Citizenship doesn't make him one of us. He's just a useful assistant. The rage was simply overwhelming Jihan's sleep. He tried hard not to attack him, but he knew that in an equal fight he could not stand against the ram. For now, Sophia decides to fight further for his rights. However, the Jihan tells her, "It's okay. You don't have to do this." I wonder what happens between the two events. Leaving, Jihan says, "Let it be. I don't care." That's a real man. The sheep was clearly not an authority to him. Son Jihan was just a refugee who fled after losing his homeland. He lost everything, his home, his future, and his family. At one time, Jian had obtained an SSS rank ability. He managed to get 7th place in the world ranking of players. But still, no one recognized him as his own and forced him to experience all kinds of discrimination. Even though he was many times stronger than all those idiots, he tolerated being ridiculed. But this was far from weakness. What bothered him most, however, was the guilt of being the sole survivor of his nation. It temporarily, his soul did not give him peace day or night. The guilt devoured him more and more every day. Jihan was a well-read and educated young man. He often reminisced about his past life, his home, and his family. We should manually restore it, especially since there could be a new monster at any moment. Oh, the results of the mission are coming in. A couple minutes later, a notification arrives that says, Game over. The results of the Bronze League assignment are announced. Defense mission type. Conditions met. More than half of the players survived. US mission accomplished. Also, China is fulfilled. Russia failed. Japan is failed. They have failed so many tasks that trying to save the world seems ridiculous. The other players, seeing the situation, were amazed. They even shouted out in astonishment. Only 2 countries out of 10 could do it. This can't be. It looks like this is the end after all. Yes, of course. A small group of heroes will still be able to hold on for a while. But it is obvious that the end is near. Suddenly, a big window pops up that spells humanity has not passed the downgrade prevention. What's that all about? What kind of prevention? Players who didn't show up for prophylactics met the orcs in the final battle. When the information window disappeared, all the players around started asking each other in surprise. What was that? Did you go through prophylactics? With orcs? What could it all mean if mankind has a chance after all? Sophia turns to the Baron. Mr. Sir, we need the Jihan. We won the last battle against them because of him. These words made Baron angry, but despite his displeasure, Sophia was right. Without him, they have no chance of winning. However, Baron was stubborn as a goat. Before I teleported him away, he said no. Let's go without him. Representatives from every planet are being summoned. The battle is about to begin. On the space platform, the warriors from each planet appear. Everyone who was there was the strongest warrior back home. Mankind was represented by the American First Guild, represented by the Baron and his closest aides. You have to be very careful here. They may look like dumb and clumsy pigs, but do not underestimate them. They are not fierce and ruthless in battle. It's funny how most people think orcs are the weakest monsters. But no one has ever thought that their weapons are forged from the rarest metal, which can withstand the impact of planetary force. And each of them is fluent in the art of combat. Look who was teleported along with the Baron. He saw that his faithful friends and the rancher from China were with him. Only 5? Certainly not enough forces to fully counter the orcs. Oh, how I miss Sleep Jahan. And Sophia told him to take him with him. Realize that the enemy's forces are greater than their own. He was ready to give it his all. But he was still unwilling to admit that they needed the son Jihan. His stubbornness can be very costly. What's up, you idiot pigs? Come here. Baron is completely consumed by hubris. He thinks he can handle himself. Well, we'll see. He began to absorb the spiritual energy that was around him. This allowed him to raise his power level to the peak of power. Baron concentrates all of the collected energy into one place for an instant and terrifying strike. As nefarious a person as he is, let's not forget that he's number 1 on the world's power list. When he had gathered enough energy for such a strong attack, something went wrong. The orcs just stood still, as if they knew that this attack would do nothing to them. But Baron, there was no stopping him. His body and soul were completely filled with cosmic energy. His eyes were glowing bright red, and his body was emitting a red aura of awesome power. As predictable as it was, the orcs didn't care deeply about his attack. They just even gave him the chance to attack. The orc had only one swing of his axe to take the Baron's life. The members of the Alliance, and even Sophia, didn't expect this. How could they destroy the strongest player on Earth so easily? And Sophia warned them that they can't do it without Jihan. A meeting of civilization representatives, live on the air. When people saw that the most ordinary orc could defeat a Baron, they were horrified, and any hope of victory was lost in their eyes. However, Jihan isn't surprised at all. This guy obviously knows more than he's saying. The post of Alliance leader was now vacant. It was the perfect opportunity to prove myself. With Baron gone, the orcs decided not to stop. They wiped out the human race one by one. The strongest players on Earth were wiped out in a matter of seconds. That's it. There was no hope of salvation for the humans. Of the human race, only Sophia was left alive. She begged the orc to let her live. She couldn't handle an entire squad of the strongest orcs on her own. The monster didn't care about the girl's pleas. He only wanted to destroy. Swinging his axe, he says, "Thank you, humans. Thanks to your weakness, we did it. Game over. Humanity has lost and has been expelled from the Bronze League." The last stronghold of humanity fell in a matter of seconds. A lower-level league does not exist. Therefore, existence was deemed worthless. Since there was no league lower than the Bronze League, mankind was excluded from the Cosmic League. Small black holes began to appear all over the planet, consuming the planet from the inside out. Oh shit! The removal process has begun. Damn, these holes are growing at an incredible rate. In addition to the planet, they're also eating people. Even the sleep of the Jihan could not resist this power. That's it. The end of the world has come. With each passing second, the black hole swallowed the Earth more and more. The only good thing is that it's going to happen quickly. The darkness swallowed the entire planet and took its toll on the people. It didn't spare children, women, or the elderly. People started running in terror, looking for their loved ones. That's it. The deletion is complete. Suddenly there was an external error. What? How can that be? What kind of mistake? Some people are left. What if these people could restore humanity to the way it disappeared? Of course, the only survivor, the Jihan Dream, appeared. Cast into the wasteland, he wondered. Once again, was I the only survivor? As it suddenly appeared, an informational notice, nameless divine arts lead to removal. Jihan blurted out in surprise. Prevents removal, I wonder? Nameless divine arts hinder? Suddenly he remembers his personal file, and it says he needs improvement. Jihan blurted out in surprise. Prevents removal? I wonder. Namel, would it all work out, or can we improve them? Known only to God. Says divine arts hinder? This being is weak, but not without possibilities. We cannot neglect the possibilities. This was no longer the view of a normal information window. It was more like a correspondence. Suddenly, some light and sound began to appear in the darkness. If you listened closely, you could hear someone arguing, whether to give him another chance or not. After a moment, the three creators of worlds appeared before him. They were called them for a reason, for they could create everything or leave nothing by the power of thought. And again, pitch blackness. And again, the information field. Votes counted. Player Sun Jihan will be returned during the first entry of the league. First entry into the league. What? The darkness changes to light. Does Jihan have a chance to start over? Sun Jihan, in a cold sweat, finds himself on the cold floor. He will be accosted by a familiar voice that says, "Let's get to the interview." What? Was it all a dream? Or was he really given a second chance? As he got up from his bed, he felt a severe headache, as if he had been hit with a hammer with all his might. But if you take a better look, his room is full of empty liquor bottles. That explains a lot. Through the horrible rumbling in his head, Jihan thinks, shit, what the hell even happened? The last thing I remember reading was being brought back during my first entry into the league. Coming to his senses, Jihan stiffened. This place. This is his home. Oh, come on. There's no way I'm getting a second chance. I'm just an ordinary player. I wasn't even the strongest among humans. I wasn't even the strongest among humans, thought Jihan, going to the window and pulling the curtains open. Jihan almost fainted. Outside the window, there was the sun he'd seen for over a year. What if he really was back at the beginning? And that was the South Korea of 2020. He had a chance to save humanity again. But the thing is, the year is 2020. Humanity has entered the Space League. But this was just the beginning. People did not yet suspect what lay ahead. To see children playing in the yard, it was wild for a Jihan. There were lots of people walking the streets, families, couples in love. It was still fashionable to be a gambler then. A girl from the players asks, "Are you going to play today too?" And her young man says, "Of course. The training will be over soon." In 2020, it seemed like just a fun game. Seeing all of this, Jihan finally realized he was indeed back. Now he has a chance to make things right. He immediately decided to check his window status. Maybe there are some changes. Seeing that he was level 2 again, he made sure he was back. After all, this was when he first entered the league. A great opportunity has presented itself to him. If we use the information from his past life, he can change the future. He has to work. After all, his family is alive now, and this time he will be able to protect them. Emotions overwhelmed the Jihan, but he was sure that this time everything would work out. He firmly decided for himself that this time things would turn out differently because he saw how the game would end and was able to come back to right the wrongs of the past. It was so unusual to see Earth nations fighting among themselves rather than acting together. It was normal then. Or should I say now? In 2020, South Korea was one of the strongest. In the world ranking of players, 11 best was, and among them, one ranked third. What's more interesting, already in 2020, a lot of heroes had a fairly high level of power and magic, but few wanted to develop it. At that time, names thanks to the Sword King, Yoon Shijin, Korea remained indestructible. For Sun Jihan did not yet possess the strength that he was destined to have. Yoon Shijun was the pride and treasure of the country, the strongest warrior, due to which rather always occupies a high position in East Asian competitions. Of course, if you compare him to those heroes who were, or rather will be, he's just nothing. After the fight, Shijun held a press conference. He said, "I, Jun Shijun, have decided to change my name to Ryuhei and become a Japanese citizen." A statement about a beautiful player from South Korea shocked everyone. In July 2020, he joined the new self-defense forces. That momentous day, the Korean battleland experienced the greatest shock in its history. But Jihan had already experienced this. He felt like a clairvoyant, for he knew what would happen tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and even a month from now. Watching his press conference, Jihan was furious. After all, it was after Yoon Shijun's departure that the real chaos began in Korea. That day was the beginning of the end. Within an hour, the news was already all over the place about his departure. A correspondent on local television said, "The King of Sword Truth has left us after the announcement of this shocking news. Concerns about the fate of the rankings in Korea are growing in the league." And indeed, it was after that day that Korea changed forever. Sung Jihan watched TV and thought to himself, Korea, who had been occupying the top position until now, faced a string of defeats and collapsed down the list with incredible speed. Shit. We are literally the worst. However, the Korean media is trying to reassure the civilians and says, despite this, some analysts note that no big changes in the ranking are expected. Yes? That's right. We have a lot of talented young people. We hope it is more likely to remain in the top 20. God, this is all so idiotic. If they knew what the future held, they wouldn't be doing this pointless caviar thing. Turning off the TV, Jihan thought, with this approach, it's no wonder we quickly failed. After all, no one could replace Yoon Shijin, and things might have changed differently if they had more time. But Batland is mighty tough, despite such terrible news of a strong player leaving. Ordinary people were going about their business. Suddenly, every person on the planet received a message. Mankind has joined the Space League. People don't realize what that means, because Batland was a simple game. But just 2 years later, when the Space League began, it became a warfield for survival. If you lost in the game, the same thing happened in reality. In countries with low ranks, monsters appear, which led to terrible battles, after which there was nothing left, only ruins that used to be cities. After Yoon Shijin's departure, Korea, as expected, fell to the bottom of the rankings. The humans tried their best to defeat the space monsters, but their efforts were in vain, and Korea was destroyed. The survivor always said that if Yoon Shijun had stayed in his homeland, things would have ended differently. Together, and by working together, they would have been able to resist the monster. Just because of one person, an entire country was destroyed. Yoon Shijun, until that day, was a national hero in Korea, until that day. His portrait hung in every apartment. He was very powerful and important to them at that time. And he was also the son-in-law of the son of Jihan. And he felt some responsibility for what happened. All these years he wondered why his beloved sister had fallen in love with such a scoundrel. After all, the blame for the destruction of their home was entirely on his shoulders. Jihan was completely consumed with emotion. He couldn't contain himself. I wonder if things would have turned out differently if she were alive. After all, it was the death of his beloved that drove Yoon Jihan to move to another country. Because everything around him reminded him of her, he could not bear such a heavy niche. That's it. Now is not the time to be subjected to memories. We need to decide what we're going to do next, and make a plan of action. Jihan was certainly glad to go back, because now he has a chance to save all of humanity. However, his stats were too low. With such skills, the most ordinary monster would be a challenge for him. Suddenly, Jihan shouted out, "Oh shit! At that point in my life I spent all my time drinking and gambling. If I only knew what my irresponsibility would cost me. In the past, he was a real fool. Wasted his life for nothing. Looking at his stats, he didn't even know where to begin. Every single one of the stats was just as bad. But this time it would be different, because he knew how incredible a thing he possessed." As suddenly a present comes to him, it was very unexpected and pleasant. It was a wanderer. It allows you to see information about other players. It's a very useful thing. Everyone over the age of 18 was inserted as a player, but only a few got gifts. If you got a gift, you were considered the chosen one, and an incredible future awaited you. He received the lowest ranked gift. He used this ability to predict the winner. Seriously, dude. That's how much you've been neglecting your powers? The situation in which Jihan found himself did not please him at all. But now he knew that the true value would only be revealed upon awakening. No matter how hard it would be again, it had to be done. Taking a better look at his abilities, he was surprised. His stats were simply nightmarish. They were level 1. So how could he get level 2? How could he forget that? On another one of his evenings, he mixed up the bottles and drank an experience potion, which allowed him to level up to level 2. What can I say? The fact that there's still some potion left is good news. But one green, don't unleash your potential. Jihan decided to check his inventory. Maybe there's something else in there. Suddenly he saw that he had as much as 100,000 achievement points. But how did he get that many? After all, he's done nothing and has a terrible score. Jihan began to ponder this question. He thought, leave out the fact that they're useless and worthless. And I hardly achieved anything before entering the league, so where did they come from? All right, I'll deal with that a little later. It's time to look in the inventory. Of course, there's probably nothing there, but it's worth checking. Upon opening his inventory, Jihan was speechless. After all, there was an X-rank item in his inventory. Items of that level were only available to the highest players. How could such an item be in the possession of a second-level player? It was an achievement points exchange coupon. The benefits of being the last survivor to choose the path of testing yourself again when you see this. You can. Jihan thought for a moment. Am I the only one who has it? This coupon will allow him to upgrade in seconds. All that's left is to figure out how it works. He immediately decided to use it. He got a message. You used an achievement points exchange coupon. However, Jihan didn't feel any change in himself. Was this really it? But a minute later, a notification came in that said, Added achievement store. Oh, great. Now at least I know where to put all those points and achievements. Yeah. There wasn't much to buy. He suggested improving the achievement store, expanding the status windows, and even room for an extra class. Unfortunately, none of these things suited him. Jihan thought about the strategy for a while, and decided that if he improved the store, there would be more choice. He needs something he can use now. Okay, let's try to improve the store. Maybe it will really add some new things. He needs to maximize results in the shortest possible time. The store has a message ready for him. Achievement store gained 2 levels. Inventory expansion has been added. Shit. I don't need this. I'll try again. Better in the store up to level 3, Jihan got an extra rank spot. It's no use now either. If he upgrades the store to level 4, he will only have 10,000 points left. The only question is whether or not he's taking a risk. The higher the level, the higher the pumping. He has only 2 choices. You can buy all available options, or you can level up. Jihan suddenly shouted out, What's there to think about? I'll put it all on last try. He upgraded the achievement store to level 4. He probably hasn't changed at all. He's still taking risks and living for the day. When Jihan opened the 4th level of the store, he received a message that said, Urgent recovery added. There was genuine surprise on his face, for he had not even heard of However, in this case, there is an opportunity to tidy up faulty items to new condition. Now that's a skill that can already be useful. Jihan didn't realize that this opportunity was opening up incredible horizons for him. He thought, that's why I couldn't stop gambling. All the troubles I've had in my life are because of them. It's time. Get in the game for real. Because Jihan was from a very wealthy family, he had special conditions for going on missions. Walking into the room, he hears, Recognition complete. You are a member of the Sun Jihan family. What? Family member? Thought Jihan. His playroom looked more like the captain's bridge of a spaceship than just a toy. Funny how the system would recognize me like that in the absence of my host. The more he was in his home walls, the happier he became. He couldn't lose it all, again. What's up? It's time to start the game. The assistant asks the Jihan, Would you like to open the Batenden inventory? Jihan was happy to take advantage of it. He was so used to it being a game, not a fight for life. Opening his inventory, he saw his first weapon. It was Dong Fengshu's ruined brush. In the state it was in now, it was a completely useless thing that was taking up space. Here comes the first opportunity to test the new ability. Let's see how urgent recovery works. Recovery took some time. However, once completed, its condition was perfect. Apparently, it was true that this skill restored things to a new state. Let's see what this brush can do now. Jihan was serious. The preparation of the brush is complete. After fully recovering, the rank of the brush had risen to SS. Only items with unique abilities had such a rank. Interestingly enough, it used to belong to a writer who was related to the god of martial arts. Soon, everyone, the Khanum Bronze League will begin. It was the perfect chance to see what Jihan could do when he returned. Suddenly, the countdown began. There were 10 seconds left before the summoning. Seeing this, Jihanov hastily opens the status window to assess his position in the upcoming game. There was less and less time left. With a paintbrush, he began to write directly on his stats. The reason why he was able to rank 7th and become a battle saint was that he combined strength, agility, which gave him an extremely rare ability. There were 5 seconds left before the competition began. With the speed of a mad dog, he was changing his stats. He didn't use this brush because it was broken, but what is written with it? We're 3 seconds away from the first fight. What he painted with the brush would be the beginning of his awakening. This brush was so powerful that it could control time and space. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. And Jihan's dream circle had entered the BattleNet League. This time the type of task was survival, and his first fight will be in the greatest arena of mankind, the Colosseum. We hope you survive facing the monsters of the Colosseum and the number of players. Even though Jihan's performance was quite low, we should not forget his greatest experience. When half of the players have passed, the task will end automatically. After familiarizing the participants with the rules, the game began teleporting them to the arena. A moment later, Jihan was standing in the middle of the Colosseum, surrounded by thousands of other players. He hadn't had time to properly prepare for the battle, so he was in his pajamas, and his only weapon for the fight was a paintbrush. Seeing all these players, Jihan started to panic. Wait, what happened to his combat? Did he succeed or not? Opening his status window, he saw the message. Characteristics, agility, and strength points, and health were combined into a fighting strength. He did it. All right. He was a fighting force. Before the fear set in, minutes away. So Jihan decided to check the in-game notifications. It didn't say that he had completed obtaining the unique power and had also obtained 10,000 achievement points. Seeing this, Jihan finally smiled. He said, "At last we meet again. This is just one step towards the acquisition of the nameless divine arts. However, it's enough to easily pass the Bronze League." Before the fight begins, the assistant reminds Jihan that he has entered the arena without joining the combat connection. This means that he will experience 100% of the pain he receives. On our hero, it didn't bother him at all. What he had already experienced let him endure the pain with ease. We live in a world where the majority diminishes relevance. At this time, people are less likely to get hurt in the game, with the help of connectivity. Yoon Sejun had it high-tech and got rid of 99% of the pain. However, Jihan decided to experience it for what it really is. After all, only the realization that you are invincible can make you victorious. Before the fight, Jihan gathers his thoughts. This time he is the only one who can save humanity from annihilation. As suddenly his meditation was interrupted by a message. A window of achievement had opened. I got a limited assignment. His eyes read genuine surprise, for he had never received one before. The mission was done in order to rank first among all participants in the upcoming training. The reward for completing this mission was 1,000 achievement points. It's not a lot of points, but it won't be too much. With combat power, taking him out would be easy. Even taking candy from a baby is easier. Having gone through all the checks and preparation stages, the game is on. Not a second goes by when he hears Jihan shout behind him. His reflexes make him realize that he's about to be taken out by a brazen blow from behind. There's no time to hesitate. We have to act now. Got you, rookie. With such shouts, the unknown player thought to have destroyed Jihan. But it's not as simple as he thought. Not only does Jihan have a lot of real-life combat experience, she also has a unique fighting ability. When the clouds were settled after his attack, he saw something incredible. He was sure that Jihan was finished after his attack. But Jihan just caught his blade with 2 fingers. It felt like he was holding a cocktail straw. That's what the fighting force can do. In the blink of an eye, Jihan went from being a nice and kind guy to being evil. The mere sight of him made many people shiver. Looking straight into the guy's soul, he says, "Thanks for the first frag." A guild is a group of people who train and lead the rest of the players. They hold all the power and wealth in their hands. To become one of the guild members, you must be a unique player. As the whole world became interested in Buttland, every country began to invest millions of dollars and resources to encourage the strongest players. Thus, thanks to the active investment of famous enterprises, large and small guilds emerged in South Korea. They were able to prepare strong players for the big leagues, Kanem Bronze League. This is where the guild's rising stars make their debuts. All guilds are watching this league without exception, to be the first to grab the young talents. The game is about to start. This confused guy in the middle who tried to destroy the Jihan is called Doohickey. Doohickey didn't understand how the rookie was able to repel his attack like that. He thought that the Kanema League was on a whole different level now. Trying not to lose his composure, he tries to calm himself down. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm luckier than most. In fact, Pre-Hickey was quite a strong player. He was even a member of the Divergent Guild, which manages groups of players from different leagues. This guild was one of the most famous guilds in Korea. This guild was one of the most famous guilds in all of Korea. Before Hickey was an ordinary young man who was able to join the Divergence after receiving the A-rank gift, Agility. Only a small fraction of players received a gift of this rank. You can definitely get into the top 50 with it. But hopefully this is just one gift can't be given. You can't do much without constant training and improving your stats. Gathering his thoughts, Hickey began to search for his first opponent. His gaze fell on the evil orcs, but after thinking it over once more, he decided that he wouldn't pounce on it himself. Staying alive is the most important part of the mission, and if he rushes into battle at every person he meets, someone will definitely finish him off. Looking around, Hickey was surprised most of the people present were from large guilds with good weapons. It wasn't as if he was in the Bronze League. His attention was again drawn to the Jihana. Hickey thought that he had gotten here by accident, because it was ridiculous to participate in the Bronze League like this. Here, every first person wears armor above level 5. Seeing Jihan, Hickey thought he would be an easy target. Hickey prepared to deliver his strongest blow. He couldn't believe he could earn such a simple tailcoat. I don't know who you are, but thank you. We already know this story, however from a different perspective. When Hickey saw Jihan catch his sword, with surprise, he blurted out, "What the hell is going on? He stopped my sword with 2 fingers?" Until that moment, Hickey had never met a player like Jihan. And what's more amazing is how he managed to keep up with Hickey's speed. After all, it was the only reason he was in the guild and considered unique. Jihan just threw his sword away like a cigarette butt. But his strength was so high that Hickey himself fell after the ball. That's what happens when you judge your opponent by his appearance. Jihan looks at Hickey and says to him, "You're cocky. Because of some gift you decided to participate in the Bronze League of Kanem?" Hickey's dexterity was his virtue. Those words made him furious. He shouted at the Jihan, "What? My A-rank dexterity is not just some gift. Do you think A-rank is a joke? Bet the floor of coward dust in your clothes," Hickey says. "Deny it, I won't. You're strong, but it doesn't mean the fact that you're scum." However, Jihan didn't care at all about the stranger's words. Hickey couldn't control his emotions. He was consumed by anger. How dare this beggar despise me? Who does he think he is? It's only one blow to block, Hickey thought, determined to punish Jihan for his insolence. Hickey decides to attack him at maximum speed. In maximum speed mode, pillars of blue aura burst out of his body and his eyes fill with light. Seeing this, Jihan tensed up a bit. His speed had been hard to deal with the first time around, and now he was determined to attack him with all his might. Hickey was sure he was faster. In a split second he was already in front of the Jihan, and his blade seemed to reach its target. Wow! Jihan dodged with such speed that the human eye didn't even have time to follow him. This speed of movement couldn't help but be astounding. Both Hickey and Jihan had used their limits. When he saw that Jihan was able to dodge his fastest attack, he was surprised. But he realized that he probably couldn't move at that speed all the time. Hickey, hoping to get him, was striking one by one with his likely speed. They were both incredibly fast. Sometimes, it even seemed like they were fighting in several places at once, even though Jihan dodged his every attack. It was hard. If he continued like this, he would get him sooner or later. During the battle, Jihan becomes convinced of his hunches. It's hard to get used to level 2 again. His stats are too low. If you think about it that way, it's not fast at all. Rather, this Jihan is slow. It won't be easy. After countless fights, his trajectory seemed so simple and obvious. Hickey still couldn't calm down. He was hurt by Jihan's words about his speed. After hundreds of mindless attacks, the Hiki finally stopped. Jihan takes a moment to analyze Hika's fighting tactics. It's only a matter of time before Jihan wins. Hiki decided to take advantage of the moment when Jihan was distracted. Such an act was low and despicable, but you couldn't waste your chance. Jihan's reflexes immediately kicked in. He sensed the danger. He turned around and saw the Hiki's sword approaching his head at an incredible speed. What? How could you fend off an attack like that? Despite Hika's astonishing speed, Jihan, though not without difficulty, managed to fend her off and knock the sword out of Hika's hands. He finally realized that his opponent was an unusual player. Only top-level players could move as fast as him. Now, it was Jihan's turn to seize the moment. When he saw Hika's sword on the ground, he realized this was his chance, taking his sword and coming around his back. Jihan salutes the blade with a cold-blooded salute. Hiki didn't even have time to react to such a lightning-fast attack, and for that, he paid with his life. And so shamefully, with his own blade. Finally, Jihan has earned his first fragment. Not to say it was easy, Hiki put up a good fight against the hero. After dying in the arena, Hiki's body began to teleport back, for now his fight is over. Before Hiki was teleported off the battlefield, he began threatening Jihan. "I'm gonna win this meeting. I'll make you wait. My name is Hiki. Remember that name. It will haunt your nightmares." Jihan didn't care about the idiot's cries. Dead and already talking about another fight. The world is a funny place, though. After defeating Hiki, Jihan received a notification stating, "You have earned the first frag in training. You have earned 100 achievement points." It's a pity his weapon is gone with Hiki. It was a blade that Jihan had his eye on. Our hero is very surprised that when a player dies, his weapon disappears with him. In the future, it was different. If you have already spent some weapon, it stays with you forever. Okay, I've warmed up. We can move on. To take first place, you probably need to earn more than 5 frags. I don't think the other players are as strong as this one, thought Jihan. The other players in this arena watched their battle with interest. And after Jihan finished off Hiki, the other players were wary of him. To say the least, even the orcs were unwilling to fight him. In Butland, in addition to players, there are monsters. But unfortunately, the life of a monster is equal to 1/10 of a human life. Therefore, you will have to kill as many as 10 orcs. This is the reason why most players avoid them and prefer to share them with other players, especially when it comes to orcs. Their stench was so strong that some heroes would pass out while fighting them. After a little thought, Jihan realizes that fighting them is just plain stupid. It's a waste of time. Suddenly, Jihan got a new task. He had to destroy 30 orcs. They were the strongest monsters in the Colosseum. The reward for completing this task was 500 achievement points. Shit, hunting monsters is inefficient, but it's a reward. 500 points is like the reward for 5 normal frags. Well, since such a case is not a reason for rejection. Not though, Jihan decides to get down to business. Monsters are just monsters. They don't look like real orcs. I realize this sounds strange, but for Bronze League players, monsters are created artificially so that players, when seeing a real monster, know how to behave. When the orcs saw the Jihan running at them, at first they laughed. He had no equipment, not even a weapon. They thought they could easily take him down. No one in the history of mankind has ever been as wrong as they are. Jihan was getting closer and closer to them. The Orcan, full of confidence that they would overpower him, rushed at him in droves. But for the Jihan, it will not be a fight, but the truest game. Orcs chose a rather interesting tactic. Instead of engaging him in close combat, they decided to throw 2 huge axes at him. It seemed like a logical move on their part. However, Jihan was a player who could not be defeated so easily. He easily caught the axes flying towards him at an insane speed. He didn't have a scratch on him. Now, it's time for the Jihana to strike back. He gracefully decided to bring the axes back with a shout. "Idiots. That's how you throw axes." One of the axes sliced the orc in half as if a hot knife had gone through butter. When they realized they couldn't defeat him as easily as they thought, it was too late. The orcs noticed that Jihan was running somewhere. But in a second, they lost sight of him. Ha! He was at their backs. That was the beginning of the end for those fools. So that's where the second axe went. Jihan was already ready to deal with them. The orcs, before they could even blink, had lost their heads. These monsters that were in the arena had nothing in common with the real ones except in appearance. The rest of them decided to gang up on him, hoping that together they could crush him. But with their backs to him, the leader of these non-orcs approached him. He wanted to make quick work of the Jiha. Jihan, acting as if he didn't care at all about 100 orcs pouncing on him. There's something wrong with him. Is it possible that the orcs can overpower him and they aren't even real? Phew. Looks like it was just his cunning plan to get them closer. It's amazing that Jihan can handle any kind of weapon, as if he spent his whole life learning how to do it. Jihan was swinging his axe left and right. But the monsters would not end. Even though it was easy enough to destroy them, it took a lot of energy. And when it seemed that everything was over, it turns out that there was one more who wanted to pierce Jihan in the chest with a spear. He still had enough strength left to break the spear with no problem. That's it now. This is the last one. Jihan would love to finish what he started. This orc was amazed by the hero's strength. Not only could he break his spear with one hand, but he could handle a whole group of monsters by himself. Stop talking. You're pathetic. Why are you yelling when you're attacking from behind? Well, everyone knows that orcs are not particularly intelligent. Trying to save my sorry hide, the orc tries to cover himself with the remains of his spear. What? The axe couldn't withstand the force of the Jihan? Its handle shattered into 1,000 small pieces. The tip of the axe flew more than 40 meters. Honestly, it's just unbelievable. If Jihan's power can do such a thing, what will he be capable of at the peak of his powers? Looking at the ulamik of the hilt that remained in his hand, Jihan said, "You fools should have better weapons. You are so huge yourselves, but your axes are weak." Since Jihan didn't get the last orc destroyed in time, new ones have appeared. In the Bronze League, it works like this. If you don't destroy all orcs in a certain period of time, they will be revived for quick experience farming. Just then, the orcs showed up, and the laughter started. And shouting, the little man's axe broke. Damn, to mess with these fools again. To engage, the Jihan says, "You are very persistent and stupid, not wanting to deal with each one in turn again." Jihan just stomped his foot on the ground. His blow created an incredible blast wave that scattered the orcs all over the arena. Why couldn't he have done that from the beginning? I guess he wanted to warm up. From the hand of one of the monsters, a sword fell out, which Jihan picked up for his final attack. He pushed off the ground and jumped so high, it could have looked like he was flying. Enough, I'm sick of dealing with you fools. Catch a gift from the sky. With his attack, he pierced the orc crowd with an arrow of light. That should be enough to slow them down. Jihan deliberately left one of them behind, to tell the others what he could do. The orc dropped his jaw in surprise. There was genuine horror on his snout. He is not a man, but a monster. So, let's see. What can we spend our points on? If we can improve at least one thing, it will be great. We often talk about the fighting force. So what is it? Well, combat strength is a unique characteristic that combines strength, agility, and health points. If you compare players of the same level, players with combat power are dozens of times more powerful than they are. This allows you to complete missions faster and earn more experience points. There is another reason why fighting power is so important for Jihan. If you gain 30 points of combat power, you will have a chance to gain unnamed divine arts. After all, this is the purpose of the creator of the worlds, sent Jihan to the past. That's why the Jihan needs to get them as quickly as possible. However, there is one disadvantage to this tactic. It takes a lot more time and effort to build a fighting force, which Jihan doesn't have. Suddenly, Jihan saw that his fighting power had increased. What a change that caused him to be genuinely surprised. How is this even possible? Usually it takes finding experience in combat and practicing night after night to increase it. For now, these points will only affect my growth rate. But that's enough to get me started. I don't know why it happened, but if it continues, he'll easily regain his previous level of strength, and even more. Now, with an increased level of combat strength, there was no competition for Jihan in the Bronze League. The other players' attempts to get Jihan were ridiculous. The other players, who were members of various guilds, joined together in small groups, hoping to complete the trial together, to level up together. They thought that Jihan was just lucky. The two men wanted to finish him off as soon as possible, because there wasn't much time left. They agreed that the first one to make a fragment would be rewarded. So naive. Jihan looked at them and thought, "Seriously? You have united to do what? It's also funny that the survival map must be PvP. But there is not a single clause in the rules that prohibits players from teaming up. This is a small loophole in the rules, but it will not affect the success of the Jihan. Judging by the logos in their various forms, she is from one of Korea's top 10 guilds, the Tortoise Guild. The members of this guild have high health points. Warrior and archer are a combination of melee and ranged. If they're from the same guild, it makes sense. Their duo could have easily accomplished this task if it weren't for the Jihan. The host announces, 60 survivors left. The training is about to end. Jihan was greatly surprised when all these players managed to leave the battlefield, if he just ducks so he can survive. But these two are determined to finish him off. They seem to think Jihan's an easy target. A knight says to a girl, "If you come to dinner with me, I'll leave it to you." Oh, you hopeless romantic. Are they really that cocky? While they're figuring things out, we should check the overall combat stats. After all, Jihan has a special mission. Even though he was in first place, the other players are not far behind. If they're lucky, they can easily beat his frag count. This situation needs to change dramatically. Suddenly, Jihan has one very interesting idea. One that will allow him to take first place. Guaranteed. The turtles were so sure of their superiority that they did not even pay attention to the Jihan, and talked amongst themselves. Such disrespect for the enemy, they would take offense. Unable to even realize what was happening, Jihan was already in her face. However, it was already too late. His speed was many times faster than their performance taken together. Anyone who dares to oppose the Jihan will face the same end, and this time was no exception. The girl paid for her insolence with her head, when the dust clouds settled after the attack. The knight didn't realize at first where his partner had gone, and how the Jihan had gotten behind him so quickly. A little while later, it came to him that Jihan sent his girlfriend home, and he's next on his list. As soon as he thought about it, Jihan was already behind him, ready to strike. This would put Jihan firmly in the #1 spot in the rankings. Done. One more fragment for our hero, which is why you should never underestimate your enemies. Even if they look weaker than you, the reality may upset you. What? How can that be? Right. How could he forget that they're from the Turtle Guild? Their exclusive armor is very strong. No ordinary sword can penetrate it. But Jihan was not going to give up so easily. He needed this victory. He struck one after another, hoping to break through the armor. Although his weapons were very weak, but the Jihan himself possessed incredible strength. After a few lucky hits, the turtle's boasted armor gave a breach. Before sending the knight after the girl, he says, "Girl in solid armor, you came here to chill? You'll never win with that attitude. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve a lot of suffering. Because of people like you, our planet will lose." The mastery of Jihan interested many players, but even more spectators. Among them was this beautiful girl. She was amazed that without much in the way of weapons or armor, Jihan could handle any opponent in the arena, and he wasn't even a member of a guild. This girl's name was Li Hain. She was the head of the 3rd Division in the Divergent Guild. Her direct responsibility was to find promising players. She was overjoyed that she had finally found the perfect suitor for their guild. What are you glad he's not standing in front of you right now? This sullen-looking girl was Li Hain's bodyguard. Her name was Lim Gayun. It turned out that Lim Gayun was also in this fight. She was ranked 2nd on the list of top players, right after Jihan. She wondered, "I wonder if it would be worth avoiding a fight with him if the opportunity presented itself." The full potential of Jihan, it was impossible to understand from just one fight. Therefore, it is difficult to answer this question. Li Hain looked at her and said, "My Gayun would never have lost, but would have beaten him. How self-righteous these guilds are." "Nothing, ma'am." "I will refuse," replied the Gayun. No, that's an order. We need to collect data, so fight." You can see that Jihan has taken a real interest in the coin. Surely a player like him would strengthen their ranks many times over. The Gayun had no other choice but to obey the order. "I would like to introduce a private representative, the Guild Divergent, Lim Gayun. She is a famous and promising player, who possesses an S-rank gift. Her performance in the league has lived up to all expectations. She has everything to take the top spot. But the question of whether she can beat Jihan remains open. How is it possible that a newbie could break a great player's record, without equipment or a guild?" At the Turtle Guild headquarters, there was sheer hysteria. He started later than everyone else, wearing his pajamas. And no equipment at all, but he managed to make 6 frags. Is that what level 2 players are capable of? The persona was getting more and more attention. Afterward, complete the training. Jihan decided to rest in the living room for a while and familiarize himself with the results of the battle. He had won first place among all the participants. As a reward, he received 50% of the experience he had earned. After this bonus, he would be promoted to the 6th level. Jihan was very pleased with himself. However, he realized that he was only getting so fast because he was at the very beginning. It's going to get harder from here. The remaining experience points, he decided to invest in combat power. In the beginning, it seemed like a logical move. His combat strength level had increased to level 9, and he's also been promoted to the league. Now he's a conqueror of learning. Sounds like nothing, but it's better than nothing. However, the title only lasts in the Bronze League. Fighting for promotion to the Silver League is only available after level 25. For now, you need to concentrate on pumping. There's still time to spare. By the way, he has the opportunity to upgrade his class. It won't help much in battle, but it will look solid. An important moment when a player chooses a class. You can choose from 4 basic classes: Warrior, Archer, Mage, and Support. We shouldn't forget about the store's achievements. Thanks to him, even if another class is chosen, I can add a Warrior later for 10,000 points. Now he needs to choose the Warrior class first. After all, he has played for him before, and knows all the peculiarities. Well, it's time to get to the game. Welcome to the Bronze League in Canham territory. This time it's a defense of your mission. There are several strongholds on which there are crystals symbolizing your success. If the enemy manages to destroy all the crystals, the mission will fail. Protect the crystal and survive the zombie attack. Good luck and incredible victories, players. The fight will continue until 5 towers remain. It's been a while. I didn't even recognize her in that armor at first. Lim Gaiyun also chose the warrior class. The mission promises to be challenging, although the zombies have low strength and maneuverability, but their ability to survive is amazing. To the game, the rest of the players. Finally, Jihan and Gaiyun are going to face off. Too bad they have to work together now. These were players we hadn't seen before. One of them was clearly a mage, and the other was a member of a guild. Well, let's see what they're capable of. The 2 men were whispering amongst themselves. Realistically, of all the options, this card was the one we needed. Defense? It seemed like it was easy for them. Along with the Gaiyun on the mission were also an archer from the LC organization with B-rank equipment, and a mage who doesn't seem to be a guild member. His gear is impressive. Not bad for this level. However, the most important aspect on this map was the player who chose to be a support. Defense implies a long-term fight. It's a battle of attrition. That's why the help of a supporter is very important. Who do you think missed and chose support? Our favorite Jihan, of course. Well, at least he dressed up a little more respectably this time. Appearing on this map, Jihan thought, "What's the defense here? I hate defense." 20 minutes ago, you have chosen the class of support. Warning, this class is not combined with the user. Do you definitely wish to choose a support class? However, Jihan knew what he was doing. There was only one reason for this choice, which even the system deemed inappropriate. A new ability, a divine power unlocked after selecting a class, necessary for a new unique skill to appear. There's almost no way to get it otherwise. As in this, as with other skills, training won't help. Actually, another way of getting contributions to him for extra points. Jihan went to put everything in at dawn and get the nameless divine arts. But he couldn't waste his precious points. But there's another way, one that no one knows about. Oh, now it's all clear. When Kyung saw that Jihan was a support, she couldn't stand it and shouted, "What the hell? Are you a sappo?" The magician couldn't contain his laughter. Through it, he said, "Wow, crazy. This is why I didn't want to talk about training." I could tell he was an interesting guy, but I didn't think he was that interesting. When he calmed down, he started talking like a madman. "Look at your clothes and equipment. What are you, a beggar? You think I've spent so much money on mine to sneak a beggar like you?" He was obviously unhappy about something. Well, Jihan didn't care what others thought of him. Trying to calm the distraught magician, his friend tells him, "You're out of line. Calm down." But there was no stopping him. He kept shouting, "Let me go. Look at him. How can you be calm?" Watching this circus sideshow from the sidelines, the Gaiyun thinks, "God, he's so nasty. I'm not going to play on the same team with him." But she had no choice. It's going to be hard to deal with him, but it's a task that must be done. Jihan, fed up with this fool's senseless yelling, he decided that if others couldn't calm him down, he would. Ha ha ha. That's it. You don't want to piss off Jihan. Of course, the mission will be a little harder to accomplish now. But that's okay. Jihan's done it before. Having thrown him off the cliff wall, Jihanna shouts to him, "If you don't want to play, don't play. We can manage without you." Maybe this act was a bit impulsive, but the magician himself was to blame for not yelling like a little kid who had his lollipop taken away. What's Jihan doing? Is he going to bring him back? No, it was fine without him. He did all right. That'll teach him how to sass the other players. When the Jihan came back, he immediately started apologizing on his knees. Well, let's see how he understood the lesson. He begged Jihan not to throw him off the mountain again. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. That hysterical man's name is Kim Gahek. That annoying mage just started acting differently. The thing is, in the Bronze League, you only get 3 lives during defense. After the educational lesson of Jihan, he has 2 of them left. So he can be reborn one more time. Then he was destroyed again, leaving him with 1 last life. If he loses his last life as well, it's game over for him. Realizing that he had 1 life left, Kim Gyeokek begged the other players to save it. If he left the game first, he would be in last place. And if he was in last place, his level would drop. And all the abilities he bought with his money just disappeared. This is one of the features of the game. If the player's level doesn't match the level of the ability, and are automatically deleted, his life didn't seem to teach him anything at all. He was a member of one of the 10 great guilds, and was respected at all. But he had lost the battle to advance to the Silver League for Timmy. Jihan recognized that he had made use of his gift. In his eyes, Kim Gaeun was the simplest of losers. Gaehan agreed to participate in this mission with them on one condition. Jihan had to apologize for throwing him off the wall. Jihan did not tolerate such insolence. He grabbed him by his robe and said, "You know what, my dear friend? This is a good idea. Well, he's lost his last chance at this fight." And the Vijihan gave him more than one. Well, I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for your time and support. See you soon.